where do you see the change, needing, I know it needs to occur everywhere, but where do you see it needing to change first and most? Is it in the performing side, or is it in the education side?
Yeah, I it's a good question. I do some like judging for like the national trumpet competition, and I was like the graduate division prelim chair for the last round. I can tell you like the diversity in the performers and the pieces in that was was very vast. So I feel like when I like looking at the pool of just huge, I mean, fantastic talent from all different walks of life was awesome. So like I feel like we're get like performers are coming out of schools in like currently. So I feel like we're going to see a big change in the next 10 years. How do we change now? I think it's really tough, right? Like how do we empower and how do we like bring and give opportunity to an educator to heart, so I'm always like, how do we like give students the chance to do what they want, right? Like if this person wants to be like the next, principal trumpet of this orchestra, like let's get them to that point. I think with like universities and orchestras, like tenure is a big thing, right? So you've had the same people that are in those jobs for a long time. So I think as like I don't say like the guard, that's not what I mean, but as those positions are changing over, like people are retiring, I feel like we're going to see change in the next 10 years. It's just a matter of like retirements and kind of moving forward in that respect, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I mean, it depends on the area. There's small things that can be done for performers or for educators that are easy changes. And a lot of it is just, taking a step back and reflecting on your practice, whether that's like your teaching practice, whether that's how you perform, and just looking at what you play, looking at the master classes, the clinicians you bring in, what videos you share with your students.
Yeah, it's a great
Something
point.
as simple as just like, if you're showing Haydn, there are like a billion different recordings you can share. Who are you showcasing? Are you showing a wide range of people, or are you only showing the same like 4 or 5 big names? Thinking about, I know I always, I am just extra judgy now. But anytime I see like panels for like competitions or for, I don't know, different events and stuff, like when you have panels and they show the panelists, do all those people look the same? Or is there someone that looks like me? Or if I have students, do they look like can is it representative of just like society as a whole? Because we all don't look like white people. So, is there that variety in panelists, in performers, in everything? And so that's just an easy thing to reflect on in everyone's practice. And if everyone can take that step and think about it, especially for like colleges. I mean, I remember auditioning and you had to play like either Hummel or Haydn, either Artunian or something else. It was, these two choices. And an easy change that professors can make is just letting students choose their own repertoire. Or for competitions, bring in something of like, now if I were to go back to school, like I'd look for schools that let me choose my own rep, because I don't want to just play Haydn and Hummel again. If I can, live my life and not play that again, that's great. And so I'd be looking for places that allow me that flexibility and put it on the students, because now that we have, younger generations coming up, they may not want to play those same couple of pieces, and we should give them that opportunity and let them, bring in, because then as educators, we're learning from that too. We don't have to know every single piece out there. We just have to keep this open mind and be willing to learn with our students.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's kind of a interesting concept, because I feel like we have this tendency to like want to freeze time and say, okay, this is the epitome. okay, this is it. You know, the Hummel or the Haydn, you know, the Artunian. Yeah, this is it. You know, this is the representative trumpet work. And okay, yeah, it's been around. They're great pieces, um, and you know, it does help to establish a standard in a way, you know, because if everybody's kind of, you know, working the same thing, it's easy to make evaluations of, you know, their abilities. Like when I was a competitive martial artist, I mean, we would have compulsory divisions where you had to do specific things, you know, and then it's easier from the judging aspect to be able to say, okay, well, this person is good at this person is better at this, you know, so those are easy things. But I think in terms of art, when you say, okay, well, nothing written after, you know, after 1860 is legitimate, you know, it's you know, only this is going to be good. Yeah, so it stifles the composers, and then it also really shortchanges the performers, because you know, if all you're doing is listening to the same old stuff, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm not bad mouthing Haydn. You know, of course, if he wants to come throw down with me, I'll be happy to take him on. But you know, it's not. We're not listening to the same old crap. We're not playing the same old stuff. We're not sounding like everybody else. And I think that your idea of allowing students to be able to program their own repertoire is so important, because you need to find things that speak to you, because the things that speak to you will allow you to perform at your best, you know. So I really love that idea. So any of you educators out there, Ashley has thrown down the gauntlet. Let's look at some ways that you can change the way you approach your students in your studios.
Yeah, I would add one thing too. Like I think about, like, as we're gigging, like how many times did I get paid to play the Hummel or the Haydn or the Artunian? Never. How many times did I get paid to go sit in a jazz band? More times than the Haydn. How many times did I get to go sit in with, you know, a popular music group and play more? What do I do right now in my military band job? I play in a rock band. I am a classically trained trumpet player, but I made sure that I can play other styles. That's another thing too, is you're like making sure your students see not just like people, but also different styles and where the trumpet fits. Because I think that's the fantastic thing about the trumpet. And we're on a trumpet podcast, so I can be a huge trumpet nerd now. But like, we play everything. We play in every group. We fit everywhere except for woodwind quintet, because I mean,
yeah, they don't count.
Sorry, they do really don't.
Yeah, our percussion ensembles. Hey.
But yeah, I think that's also, like, as educators, that's an important thing to think about too. Like, you know, again, like, how many spots are there in orchestras? Not as many as there are trumpet players. Like, where do we gig? Where do we make our money? Where do we find good people to play with? They're in every different kind of group. So,
yeah. Well, and that's a theme. You know, I was fortunate enough to be able to interview Mary Elizabeth Bowden recently, and that was one of the things that she was talking about. Is like, you know, the way that your career path is laid out, you know, traditionally it's like, okay, you're going to go to school and you're going to get your master's, and then you're going to you know, audition and get a job in an orchestra, and that should be your career path. Well, like you said, there are fewer orchestras now than there were, you know, 40 or 50 years ago, when a lot of these programs really began to pick up their credentials in terms of, you know, these are the schools you want to go to for getting into the big times. So there are fewer and fewer opportunities to play in the orchestral setting. Even like in the jazz world, you know, it used to be, you know, you would go out on the road with a big band. Well, there aren't any touring big bands anymore, or very few of them. Yeah. So you have to, as an educator, or not as an educator, but the educational system needs to reconsider the way that they are programming the curriculum, because the things that worked in the 50s and 60s and 70s no longer work, because the face of music has completely changed.
Yep.
So we're all in agreement there.
We're all in agreements here.
Yeah.
Yeah.